Oh, yeah. Siegfried's funeral music from Wagner. A great way to introduce chapter 4, which deals with civil liberties. And the test, which is coming up next week, quiz number 2. But I want you to actively read, and by doing that, you've got to read the introduction and understand what you're going to study in the 2 chapters that are going to be on the test. And by actively reading, well, you read the things that you're going to read about. The 5 things that you're going to read about are civil liberties, religious freedoms, speech, privacy rights, and due process rights. And you can read 2-3 pages a day, something like that. And don't worry about understanding or learning yet. Just read them. Just read them. Don't get frustrated. Don't go screaming out into the cold air, although it is going to warm up. Hopefully all of you have energy back. I never lost power, but we did lose water for a few days. So we've made some adjustments to the due dates. More about that later. But when you read, just read a few pages, ladies and gentlemen. 3, 2, 1 a day. I know you're all busy, but just do that. Don't worry about understanding, learning, okay? Some of you do say, I don't understand. I can't learn. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, no one knows what they're doing until they study something and learn about it and keep studying and keep learning and keep practicing. Carpenters don't become master carpenters overnight, or plumbers. So it takes a while. Master teachers, professors like Professor Turner don't become masters overnight. I didn't get my master's degree in one day, one year, even 2 years. I'm not Sheldon. I took a few years to get my master's. Took 2 years. So things take time. So when you're reading, just read it and then come back to it and then highlight the key points. Take a look at the overview in your modules. You've got it separated each chapter into overview of the key terms, the PowerPoint, and then my lectures. So take a look at the overview. This gives you a quick and dirty summary and the key terms that you need to memorize and know the definitions of. Another way to study, of course, is to look at the PowerPoints. You can look at those while I'm giving the lecture. Here's my lecture on chapter 4.
We'll get into some safeguards in the original Constitution, the one without the Bill of Rights, that you're not aware of, that are probably,
And here
some of
I
them sound familiar.
explain through use of the PowerPoints
Then we'll talk about the Bill of
what's in
Rights
each of the
and
chapters.
so
And I
they
try
call
to
the
separate it so that
incorporation
you
issue.
understand it better, so that you can learn it. All right, well, back to the reading part. So you're reading, you've gone over it twice. You can highlight things that jump out at you. And things that are in boldface in the print version and this electronic version, those are important terms and they are going to be on the test. So if you go to quiz 2, one of the questions is about the writ of habeas corpus. In fact, if you go to the details, that's the first question, idea, fact, theme, concept that I want you to know about. Which of the following statements is true about the writ of habeas corpus? So what that translates to is you've got to know what is the writ of habeas corpus. Well, it's in this big long paragraph. So you have to highlight the important stuff. Well, where do I go? What do I do? Well, the things immediately after and probably before it are important. Don't miss out on those. Sometimes I even do that. And I have to go back and reread stuff. That's how I learn. So in this case, I highlighted all of this or underlined it, whatever you prefer, whatever color you prefer. So Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution provides that the writ of habeas corpus. So here we're still talking about the writ of habeas corpus, a Latin phrase that roughly means produce the body, will be available to all citizens except in times of rebellion or national invasion. So that's part of the definition. A writ of habeas corpus is an order requiring that an official bring a specified prisoner into court and explain to the judge why the prisoner is being held in jail. If the court finds that the imprisonment is unlawful, it can order the prisoner to be released, the court. Now, you want to do note cards, that might help you. Some people just write terms and then 1 or 2 lines of the definition. They summarize this whole definition in one sentence. That's up to the individual. And you can write as many things in one card as you want. I've just given you one definition on one card as an example. And flip it over and you have the definition. Now it's incomplete. I should add the stuff about is available to all citizens except in times of rebellion or national invasion. That should be added in here. Oops. Because if you look at here, we'll go into the quiz here. The question specifically on writ habeas corpus, which of the following statements is true about here? I'm going to give you a free question. A free question you're going to get right on the test. Every one of you will get this question right. Which of the following statements is true about the writ of habeas? Well, I wrote down, all right, 5 possible answers. There they are. Here's possible answer A. It does not require a prisoner to be presented in the court during a court hearing. Well, that's not right. That's not a true statement. It does. So that's not it. And then I give you the reason, but that you're not going to see that, but that's the reason. It is not available to citizens during times of rebellion or national invasion. Well, sure enough, says right there, will be available to all citizens except, so you better underline that, This is what's called active reading here. Active reading, you got to underline that word, except in times of rebellion or national invasion. So that's the answer. You don't even have to read the rest of these because you know it's this answer. Which of the following statements is true? When you're reading the question, focus on those key words like true. What is true about the writ of habeas corpus? It is not available to citizens during times of rebellion or national invasion. Going back to the reading. Now I word it different. Well, the publisher words it differently in the book. Will be available to all citizens except in times of rebellion. So it is not available to the citizens in times of rebellion. So there you go. It is not available to citizens during times of rebellion or national invasion. So I've written it a little bit differently in the answer choices. So that'll be your answer choice. Let's do one more, a little less tricky than that one. Which of the following protects which protects citizens from government actions? Well, that's the whole chapter. Civil liberties. The founders believed that the constitutions of the individual states contained ample provisions to protect citizens from government actions. That's what we're talking about in civil liberties. And I go into that in this PowerPoint and in my lecture and the overview here. Civil liberties are legal and constitutional rights that protect citizens from government actions. Well, hell, that's question number 2. So you go down here through the possible answers and you find out civil liberties are protections for citizens against government actions, which is what they are. Because governments throughout history, as I mentioned in my lecture,
which is, I'll get into that.
Can become tyrannical.
Well, first,
they
let's
cause
get
trouble.
The definitions of civil liberties and civil rights. Civil liberties are protections that are written in the Constitution of the United States against government action. Protections that forbid the federal government from doing certain things. It's a protection. It's a prophylactic against intrusion into our lives, our ways of doing business by the federal government. It's
okay. There you go. So I mentioned that in the lecture, and it's defined in the PowerPoint. Civil liberties are limitations on that government action. Okay. So I've given you the questions basically in the detailed instructions on chapters 4 and 5. I've given you 58 possible questions, and I'm going to ask 40 from them worth 50 points. So just go through these and do the note cards, do them on one, or do a bunch of definitions on one, whatever you want to do, whichever is easiest for you. Write the definitions, make sure they're complete. But anything in blue, anything on the overview of chapters and key terms is important to understand those definitions, because those turn up on the test, don't they? Like a writ of habeas corpus, like a bill of attainder, which is right here. Here's the definition. If you go to the next card, there it is. There's the definition. But make sure it's a complete definition. Constitution prohibits, forbids. Use your dictionary, have a dictionary handy. If you don't understand words, that's a helpful thing for many people. Myself, for some reason, I've been a wordsmith and understand words better than 99% of the population. Well, Mr. Turner, that's because you're older and you're smarter. Well, thank you, thank you. Actually, no, I was this way. I was almost born this way. I don't know why. Maybe that's why I'm a professor. Maybe that's why a professor of government. I'm not sure. But from elementary school, I've always been a wordsmith and knew the meaning, the definitions of words. So if there is a definition, an understanding of a word you need to know, I'll find it out if I don't know it, but I'm pretty darn good at it. Anyway, so study these key terms. The ones in blue are very important. And read the chapters, highlight things that you feel that you think are important. Because after you've read it twice, they will jump out at you. Also, there are things in italics, like Barron versus Baltimore. Now, that's an important case. Maybe you want to highlight it in a different color and what it's about. The United States Supreme Court upheld this view when it decided in Barron versus Baltimore that the Bill of Rights did not apply to state laws. What? I didn't know that. Yeah, for a long, long time, the Bill of Rights only applied to the national government's actions. And I go over that again in my lecture. And when we discuss the PowerPoints, I go over it when I talk about it in the discussion here.
Statements of what the government can and cannot do.
These are
councils,
the three original safeguards, but then I go into the
Expo Convention. Very
Bill of Rights, and then the
grand juries don't things in there about states. States cannot do this. States cannot tax another state's imports, those kinds of things. Those are in the Constitution. But the federal Constitution, by and large, was something that created the national government. As the states existed before, they created this national government. And naturally, they kept a lot of powers themselves, as reserved powers in the 10th Amendment. And that's how the court interpreted it. In 1833, in the Barron versus Baltimore case, the court made clear that this Constitution clearly applied to the national government. In the case of Barron versus Baltimore, Barron owned property.
Well, I get into the little bit more on the details of the case. So that's what you want to do when you are studying for quiz number 2. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I've talked about the book, what to do with the book, talked about the lecture. That's helpful for some people. Talked about the PowerPoints, and go through those, and talked about the overview and the key terms. Once you've, a couple other things before I conclude. When you've read twice or 3 or 4 times, whatever, if you have time, if you're a good reader, a quick reader, sometimes it's helpful to study like 3 days, 2 days, 5 days before the test, and then come back to it 2 days before the test, and then right before you take the test. If you have the time, if time is a little bit of a luxury, or if you can budget your time, and that's an important thing too. Set aside some time. Do the test when you're fresh, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. Don't do it before you go to go to work or after work, because you're probably going to be tired after work. Some of you have done that, and it's probably impacted your test. Do it first thing in the morning after you eat breakfast, got the kids off to school or whatever. Well, they're in the house, some of them, right? But if they're not around, or if nobody's around, that's a good time to take a test. I know some of you can't do that. You might live in an apartment. It might have noisy neighbors. So find a time when they're gone. Hopefully they're gone to work or sometime when there's nobody around, and then take the test, or go to a place where they have Wi-Fi. There are restaurants hopefully starting to open back up, and maybe they have good Wi-Fi, and they'll let you in to take the test. I don't recommend that. I recommend having good Wi-Fi at your house or your apartment. So make sure you're undisturbed as best you can. Let me know. I know some of you have let me know on that aspect, and we've worked some things out, but let me know on that. But anyway, back to studying before the test. Don't try to study a few hours before the test. Nothing's going to sink in. A few things might. Now, for some of you with high IQs, yeah, that might work. Some of you that got A's, straight A's in high school might be good to go. But for the rest of us, including me, I've got to study at least once a couple of days before the test, or 2 or 3 days. When I was in college, I did that. In high school, I would have to study a few days before, read the stuff before, and then come back to it, reread it, and restudy the terms, and then take the test. And I usually had to do it three or four times for the upper level tests at the university, Arizona State, where I went. And study groups were very helpful. If you can Zoom with people, that'd be great to study with them. Go over their house, wear masks, whatever you have to do. That's helpful to study with people. It really is. And then test each other. You do learn that way. That is helpful. So again, you can put as much as you want on one note card. You can, put in writ of habeas. I'm not spelling this right, am I? Let me make sure I spell this right. Yeah, EA. Okay, I got it right. Habeas corpus. And then write the definition. And then underneath that, I'm going to put bill of attainder. So I'm doing a note card that I'm going to use on the test, right? And then ex post facto law. And then I'm going to write the definition, keywords. And then I'm going to go to the next important thing, like Barron versus Baltimore. And what's that about? This is the decision where the Supreme Court said that the Bill of Rights did not apply to state laws. And then I'm going to write due process clause, and then do that, et cetera, et cetera. Procedural due process. And these things that are in boldface, also do those ones. Procedural due process. Substantive due process. Now, I want you to make sure you study those, because I believe those are on the next quiz. So make sure you study procedural and the other one, substantive due process. Okay. And when you're studying the scenarios, they're going to ask you about certain things, like in the state of Calcea, that's not a real state, a law was passed preventing minority groups from applying for jobs in government offices. If this law were to be passed in the United States, it would most likely be subjected to, well, the law, think about it, the law is based on preventing minority groups. And it's people that are minorities, although this is less and less the case, would be people of a certain race, color. So color laws or race laws are subjected to, and you'll learn about that in chapter 4, are subjected, or no, excuse me, chapter 5, I'm sorry. In chapter 5, let's go into chapter 5 real quick. to strict scrutiny. And that's described in detail. If a law or action prevents some group from exercising a fundamental right, such as our First Amendments, the law or action will be subject to strict scrutiny. Under this standard, the law or action must be necessary to promote a compelling state interest and must be narrowly tailored to meet that interest. A law based on a suspect classification, such as race, is also subject to strict scrutiny. So going back to this question about Calcia, a law based or passed on minority groups, color, that's going to be subjected to what the book calls strict scrutiny, or what the courts have called strict scrutiny. And that's unconstitutional unless you can show a compelling state interest. Okay. And again, in chapter 5, study the key terms like LGBT. Now you got QI, QQs and stuff. Civil rights, you got the equal protection clause, it's fundamental right. Strict scrutiny standard, right? The definitions of this. Suspect classifications. Rational basis test, separate but equal. These will all be on the test as well. Okay. All righty. Let's see. Is there anything else I can think of that you need to know before the test next week? The test will be on, let's see what the date of the test is. February 26th. So that's next Friday. Gives you plenty of time to study. It's worth 50 points, of course, and you got 50 minutes, a minute of questions, plenty of time. You've had it for 25 days to study, to look at, so you should have plenty of study time between now, which is Friday the 19th, and next Friday the 26th. You still got 8 days to study. So get her done. I want you to get a good grade on this test because it is worth a lot of points. I think that's all I wanted to go over. So good luck in studying. Oh no, there was a couple other things in the on the homepage. Just to let you know, of course, because of the freeze, because of the water situation, I've moved back some due dates. The feminist discussions due on Monday the 22nd, and the Plessy versus Ferguson case. If you look at your calendar, let's take a look. You can see that there's nothing due Saturday or Sunday. So this is, hopefully you'll have your power on. You do have your power on. I think they only had 1,000 customers that didn't have it on. Let me know if you're one of them. But you should be able to do it today or tomorrow or Monday or Sunday and submit these things. And then Brown, Shelby, and then quiz number 2. And then video paper number 3. I might be moving these back to the following week just to give you some time to do 3, the Federalist number 10 paper and video paper number 4. But a lot of things are coming up. So keep me posted as to your timelines, your other class due dates, and we'll see if we can work around these schedules. But believe it or not, March is right around the corner, and we have a week off starting on the 14th, and we want to have one more test before that on the 12th, and the signature assignment is due on the 12th, and a voter discussion. We might have to move it back till after the break to like the 24th or 5th. That might be what we'll have to do. Yeah, that might be what we do then. I hate to do that, but I might have to move these things back and maybe extend these out a few days. So anyway, let me think about that. And I'll be talking with you soon. Good luck. And I'll talk to you next week.